Good evening. My name is Stuart Richner, CEO of Richner Communications and publisher of Herald Community Newspapers. Welcome to Herald Inside LI, a weekly webinar series produced by Richner Live that brings together leaders from the business, government, and nonprofit sectors to address your most important issues and to answer your questions. Tonight, we will be discussing one of the biggest decisions anyone ever makes, buying a home. With COVID-19 continuing to impact the entire country, many families are re-examining where to live, from where to raise a family to where to retire peacefully, and where to live at every life stage in between. Providing expert insights this evening is our esteemed panel of Veronica Ferrero, Matthew Korman, and Scott Wallace. They will impart all of the tips and tricks that you need to know when buying a home. We'll also hear from Max and Ashley Kramer, a North Bellmore couple, about their recent experience buying a first home. Thank you, Veronica, Matt, Scott, Max, and Ashley for sharing your time and expertise with us this evening. I also want to thank our sponsors, Scott Wallace, Daniel Gale Sotheby's International Realty, Emigrant Mortgage, and Douglas Elliman for their support of Herald Inside LI and the Long Island community. Our moderator for the next hour will be Sky Ostreicher. At any time, you can submit a question to Sky and our panelists by using the Zoom Q&A button on your screen. Last but not least, we want to know what issues are most important to you and your family so that we can be sure to tailor future Herald Inside LI webinars to your interests and needs. Please email us at insideli@liherald.com. That's insideli@liherald.com with your suggestions. I look forward to an informative discussion and will now turn it over to Sky to further introduce our panel. Sky?
Thank you, Stuart, and hello, everyone. Welcome to Herald Inside LI. I'm your host, Sky. Each week on Herald Inside LI, we discuss different issues pertaining to Long Islanders, along with a panel of experts in a specific field or industry. Last month, we did a webinar on the residential real estate market on Long Island and learned that it's a seller's market with many families leaving New York City and moving into the suburbs, and that there are homes in Nassau County and in Suffolk too that are being sold at above asking price. Many Nassau residents are choosing to put their homes on the market since they can get a great price and are moving further east. We also learned that mortgage rates are super low, which is helpful when purchasing a home. So tonight, we'll continue that conversation with new perspectives from our panel and focus on first-time home buyers. Joining me here are experts from the real estate industry, Matthew Korman with the Korman Freed team at Douglas Elliman, and Scott Wallace, real estate salesperson with Daniel Gale Sotheby's International Realty. We also have an expert on the financial side of home buying, Veronica Ferrero, AVP and Community Lending Coordinator with Emigrant Mortgage Company. And what would a panel on first-time home buyers be without first-time home buyers? We are joined by Max and Ashley Kramer, who purchased their first home in North Bellmore this July during the pandemic. For the next 40 minutes, we'll have a conversation amongst the panel and cover the state of the industry, what first-time home buyers need to know, and what this hot market means for our Long Island communities. Throughout the conversation, I'll incorporate questions that were pre-submitted, and at the end of our discussion, I'll take additional questions from the audience. Since many questions were submitted about the financial qualifications for first-time home buyers, let's kick off the discussion with Veronica from Emigrant Mortgage, who works very closely with first-time home buyers, and tell us what is the most important thing first-time home buyers need to know. Then we'll go to our real estate experts and then hear from first-time home buyers themselves. Veronica?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'd love to share my years of experience, and that's changing all the time due to COVID. All that has changed a little bit for a lot of the financial situations. So for a first-time home buyer, you need to team up with somebody that is going to make the process very easy and simple and explain every step of the way. But in preparedness for a first-time home buyer, I think that the most important thing is to plan, to budget, and to basically check your credit and speak to somebody that will be pre-approving you. Because if you don't have that pre-approval or you don't start that process, it's going to be difficult to know where to go from there. So there's usually 10 steps that we recommend. And one of the steps is obviously having somebody check your credit to make sure if there is any errors, if there is anything that needs to be clarified, or if there is something that doesn't belong to you. So things happen. And figure out how much you can afford, where do you want to live, how close you want to be to everything. So pre-approval basically is not only going over your financials, but it's a lot more than that. So the first-time home buyer has a lot of options. Like you said, the rates are amazing, and the programs out there for first-time home buyers are really very helpful in reference to budgeting and helping you your down payment.
I do want to hear about some of those programs that you mentioned. What programs are there available?
So there's a lot of, depending on where you're buying, so there is some towns that are offering some grants if you're buying in that town in particular. There's also Sunny May, which is basically one of the government agencies that helps with budgeting, helps you with the down payment, and helps you if you're buying a home that needs to be renovated. There's also the first-time home buyer dream program that's also helping you with down payment and closing costs. There's numerous grants program that you should make yourself available that would help you with your down payment. So this is the best time for a lot of first-time home buyers, especially if you're buying a home that needs a little bit of TLC. Those programs will help you fix that property.
Matt, is this something you speak about with your clients, all these different programs and options?
Yeah, I've definitely worked with multiple families or couples through the years that work with the Sony May program. And I do find that people do ask those questions. I give them the resources to do the research and whatnot. However, a lot of the programs are geared and very specific guidelines. And being that we're down on Long Island, a lot of times their income might be a little too high. So you really have to do some digging and try to find the programs that really would fit their needs.
What would you say is the most important thing for a first-time home buyer to know?
Most important thing is to find an advisor, a real estate broker that they feel that they can trust and work with, and having a team ready, willing, and able at all times of the day, so that when they do find a home that they like, they already have their home inspector that they know they're going to use. They already have their attorney that they know they're going to use, and they have their mortgage pre-approval and all their mortgage documents already lined up, ready to go, so that when somebody says our offer has been accepted, bam, we already have one phone call and we're done, and we already have the inspection scheduled for tomorrow or later that day or the next day. So very, very important to have your ducks in a row, especially in this fast-paced market right now.
Scott, what have you been seeing?
Did you say Scott or Matt?
Scott, yes.
Oh, okay, they're kind of similar. Just to add a little bit onto what Veronica and Matt said, and they're 100% correct. You have to be prepared. If you're not prepared in this market, you're going to be left behind. In terms of working with people to suggest different programs, it's always great to work with a lender. As Matt kind of alluded to, it's about a team. It's about a lender, it's about a lawyer, and it's about a trusted real estate advisor like Matt and myself, like Veronica, etc. There's a ton of grants that are available out there. There's actually Long Island Housing Partnerships, which has it's lihp.org, and you can take a look and see whether or not the towns you're looking in happen to be giving grants in those particular towns. And the lender that I happen to work with, when I introduce them to the new buyers, first-time buyers, and any buyer for that matter, she is able to give them advice. But again, Matt's 100% correct. It's about being prepared. It's about meeting with the buyers, making them feel comfortable, giving them the information that they need to be ready, willing, and able to make an offer, make aggressive offers, and then back it up with pre-approvals, pre-commitments, whatever it takes to be able to, proof of funds, whatever it takes to be able to compete for the property. It's all about being prepared. It's all about communication between everyone. And unfortunately, in this market right now, I feel for the buyers out there because they're trying so hard and they are qualified. Sometimes they need a little bit more education about their qualifications. There are programs out there. There are loans out there that don't have to be government programs. They don't have to be FHA. You can still put down 3%. It can still be a conventional product. You don't have to have PMI. So it's really very important to work with a trusted real estate advisor to get all of this information to actually put yourself in the front of the line when looking for properties in a market like this. It's really tough.
Now, Max and Ashley just went through this process. So I see a lot of nods. You see what a lot of these experts are saying. Let's hear about your experience and what you would tell to the next couple in your position.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. And I think what Matt and Scott are saying about you needing a team is spot on, right? Like when we started, we kind of started haphazardly looking in April, and that was at the point when an agent couldn't go into a house with you. You had to go in alone, and it made it a little more difficult, but we had a really good team, an agent, a mortgage broker, an attorney who's my mother who's watching. So I have to say that. And if everybody works together well, then it works. I think the most important thing to know, and Matt kind of hinted at this a little bit, is that you want to get an accepted offer, but in the New York real estate market, there's really no such thing as an accepted offer. It's an acceptable offer. And so we were in a position that a lot of home buyers are in now, where we lost 2 houses before we wound up in the one we were in, and we lost them because we had an acceptable offer, we had an inspection, and then somebody came in with a higher offer and the seller took the higher offer, and that's their right and they're entitled to do that. But that's why moving quickly, getting commitments is really important. And, I think the key for us was having a real estate agent who knew the area that we were looking in was really important because she knew the other real estate agents in the area. And as a result, was able to speak frankly with them, get us into the house we wanted to see first, make an offer first, get a commitment from the seller that if we got into contract by a certain date, the house was ours. And that's what ultimately helped us.
Sky, I don't want to interrupt, but I just want to ask Max and Ashley. So you worked with a buyer's agent, is that correct?
No, we did, yeah. Jennifer Tepper from Greystone Properties, and she knew everybody in the area. And I we got conflicting advice. Work with a buyer's agent, don't work with a buyer's agent. And I would tell everybody to work with a buyer's agent, because if the seller has somebody going to bat for them, then you're better off having someone going to bat for you also.
100%. And choosing that buyer's agent wisely.
Mm-hmm.
Like you had said, there's so many people who are being outbid. And if you're working with a buyer's agent, an experienced buyer's agent, someone like Matt, I won't even say someone like me, but someone like Matt or myself, we have ways to be able to speak and broker the deal, mm-hmm. so that we can pretty much hopefully alleviate some of those challenges. At the end of the day, the seller is always the one that's going to dictate what happens with the deal. But if you lay out the groundwork and it's detailed and if the deal is a good deal, for the most part, unless you really have a seller who wants to be a little more greedy, a buyer's agent can really broker that deal correctly.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to agree with that. And I believe that if I look back at, I've been with Douglas Elliman 18 years, and I look back at the deals that I've put together as working for the buyer over the past year, because it's been such a fast-paced market, the majority of the deals I was able to bring to the closing table were because I had relationships with those other agents that were representing the seller, because I already knew them and they knew if I come through with an offer and it looks good to everybody else, we're gonna get where we need to be at the time we need to be at the closing table. And you know, I know that if I call Scott up and I say, hey Scott, I saw you listed this really beautiful home in Rockville Center. I have a great buyer, can I get in? He's like, oh yeah, I know that I'm gonna be, you know, treated, my buyer's gonna be treated the right way, respectfully, and we're gonna be treated fairly. And it's all about being treated fair. And in this industry of buying and selling, especially when you have a handshake with somebody and we have an acceptable offer and then the owner says, sorry, we're going with somebody else, doesn't feel fair, but obviously it is what it is. It you know, that's how it is. Money talks. But
I love that Matt said that, and I 100% agree, because if somebody at Matt's caliber called me and wants to get a buyer in, I know that all his ducks are in the row that we've been speaking about since the beginning of this show. And I know that he has serious buyers, he has a serious team behind him, and we're going to get to the closing table. And that's very, very important.
And
Yeah.
same thing with you, Scott. When you call me, you know, I know it's I want you to sell the house. Like I want you to be the buyer's agent. Like that's the camaraderie we have. And then a lot of people in our industry have that as well. It's just making sure you work with somebody that specializes in that neighborhood.
I agree. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, I know. It's great that we have camaraderie on the panel. Now, if anyone's confused who's watching, please feel free to type in a question and I can ask your question for you. My question is, when you're saying buyer's agent, seller's agent, so you're saying if someone looks for a home, let's say on Zillow or MLS, not to contact the person who listed the house, but to get your own agent who represents you to contact the listing agent, the selling agent.
I mean, it's conflicting. It's sometimes people just want to go direct to the listing agent because they know that it's one less person involved.
Right.
However, you know, the listing agent really represents the seller and the seller's best interest, because that's who our fiduciary responsibility is to.
I also think, and not to cut you off, Matt, I think this panel tonight is talking about first-time buyers. So a first-time buyer, it is imperative that they work with a buyer's agent, because if they go blindly into a listing agent, again, just like Matt told you a couple minutes ago, the listing agent works for the seller. They're not giving the buyers, especially if they're first-time buyers, any advice. They're not guiding them through. They're not being a trusted advisor. And you know what? They're not allowed to be, because they work for the seller. So it's really imperative that first-time buyers find a buyer's agent that they're comfortable with. They sit down in an office in a comfortable setting, and that's what I do. Bring them into the office, bring them into the conference room, talk about what they're looking for, what their wish list is, what their wants and their needs, their must-haves and their I really want, but it might not matter. And then discuss the perils and the hardships of working in a seller's market, because that's where we're in right now. So it's really important to have that trusted real estate advisor.
Now, how do you come up with a down payment? And I'm thinking specifically with mortgages too. You need to prove that you're working, and maybe a lot of people who are furloughed aren't showing an income right now. So how does one come up with a down payment in this day and age when you're a first-time home buyer?
So the down payment can come from several, from your savings, from gifts, from grants. So it's important that a lot of the first-time home buyers have to be prepared, but they may not be ready now. So, but that's important, because I've worked with a lot of first-time home buyers that they were not ready, but they wanted to know the process. They wanted to be ready for when that time comes, 6 months, a year from now, because not everybody is at the same time ready to buy a home. So there is some grants out there that help, and those grants are not throughout the year. So for example, the Home Buyer Dream Program is only a program that is available during 3 or 4 months of the year. So you got to be prepared for that, and you got to be ready for that. And that particular program, you have to be in contract, but there's other programs that will give you a grant, but you can't be in contract. So You have to be working with a bank or a company that is approved by these grant companies and knows which one will take what kind of information. So the down payment, there is programs out there that allow 3% down payment, which is great. But then again, you also have to have some of the closing costs. And closing costs on Long Island are a little bit higher than in other areas because of our real estate taxes, because of our state mortgage tax. So all those fees add up. And again, that comes again with somebody that is going to help you figure what your closing costs are going to be. So then you're ready for that. Because it's not only the down payment, but it's a closing cost. In some cases, you need to have some reserves. You can't get to the closing costs and have no money at all. So that's important too. All those little steps have to be taken in consideration before you even go out and start looking at a home. Because there's no point to start looking at a home if you're not ready, if you're not qualified. Mm-hmm. Two things that I wanted to point out. There's a difference in between being pre-qualified and pre-approved. Some companies out there will do a pre-qualification, which is just a piece of paper. It doesn't hold much. Basically, anybody can do a pre-qualification. A pre-approval is a commitment. We've checked your income, we've checked your credit, your employment, we've looked at your assets, we've looked at everything. So more than 50% of the work has already been done when you have a pre-approval. You just have to go and find a home. So that's a big difference. Some companies won't do a pre-approval, won't spend the time because maybe that person is not ready. So, talk to somebody that is going to really spend the time with you and is going to every step of the way with you, even if you're not ready now, even if you don't find a home now. But that's important. That's team playing. That's somebody that is going to be next to you every step of the way.
I also want to point out real quick, in this day of COVID, it's not only important to have a pre-approval or a pre-commitment during any time you buy a house, COVID or not. But now during COVID, it's so much more important because people are less likely to even let you come into the home to see it unless you have that pre-approval. So it's imperative. You'll be turned down for appointments. And you know what? You probably should be, because if you're not ready, willing, and able in this type of market, in this type of environment with COVID, then you shouldn't even be in somebody's home.
Yeah, I have to second what Scott just said. Basically, a lot of brokers and a lot of homeowners won't even give us an appointment if we don't provide a mortgage pre-approval prior to making an appointment. So that's something that we never saw before COVID. It's to keep the people out they feel that are not qualified or not ready to move forward as fast as possible.
One thing that I want to add is due to COVID, unfortunately, some of the questions that I never had to ask, I have to ask now. Has your employment been affected by COVID? Will you be affected by COVID? There is documentation that we have to do now that we never had to do before. There's documentation that has to be updated now that we never had to do before. So our job as the most regulated of all industry has become even more challenging, where we have to update pay stubs, we have to update information to make sure that these people haven't gone from full-time to part-time or lost their job completely, because it's obviously going to affect. And so unfortunately, due to COVID, a lot of little things have changed and has made our job a little bit more challenging.
Max and Ashley, what from your experience could you share about this process? And then I'm also curious who the first person you called was when you decided you wanted to buy a house.
So we went on a whim to look at a few houses before we were prepared at all. And that kind of we're like, okay, now we know we need an agent. We know we need a mortgage broker to see where we stand. But I think that step was and this was before COVID, so this might not be possible now, but I think it was important for us because it kind of made us realize right away, okay, we need a team. We can't do this on our own.
And I would add to that. So when we did that the first time, we did the whole just go on Zillow and contact the listing agent. But it's kind of tricky. When you go on Zillow, you're not necessarily getting the listing agent. You're getting Zillow agents who then take you and don't really, in some cases, don't really know what they're doing. In our case, at least that was the case. And so that made us realize that we needed a team. The first person we called was a mortgage broker because we wanted that pre-approval. And we had someone who was amazing and walked us through every step of the way, answered every question, told us every time the rate went down, because it continues to go down these days. And I'm sure it's lower now than the rate we got locked into. But I would just add two things to what Veronica was saying. And that's, number one, because of the experience we had, if I did this again, I would go a step further than the pre-approval, and I would get that commitment to lend as early as possible at the number that you think you're going to buy at, because that's an even firmer document than a pre-approval. And I think had we had that, we might not have lost one of the houses that we lost, because our offer was a little shakier because it was a lower offer and it didn't have a commitment to lend. And so that might have helped us on the term side. And the other thing I would say is that what Veronica was saying about the closing costs is spot on. I mean, that's the sticker shock of buying a house. The down payment you expect, the closing costs you don't expect. And they're high on Long Island. I mean, you're talking $15,000, $20,000 in just closing costs, and that's money that's not going towards the principal of your house. So, that's something certainly to think about when you're doing your budget ahead of figuring out what type of house you can buy, where you want to buy, et cetera.
And that's why it's so important to get the mortgage broker first, because they tell you, okay, if this is how much the house is going to be, this is about how much the closing costs will be. So they kind of put it into reality for you, how much you need to have for everything.
I would say that
I wanted to add that the pre-approval that we do is a commitment. Is an actual commitment that basically we have looked at every piece of documentation up front, and the only thing that is missing is the property. So, that's, for me, that's so important when you're giving that piece of documentation is an actual commitment. And so that stands very strong when you're showing that to a seller or to a realtor if they want to see it. Now you've been pre-approved, you have a commitment in hand, just, now you have to find a house.
Now, if someone wanted to apply for some of these first-time home buyer grant programs or otherwise during this process, when do you do that? Do you get the mortgage approved first, or at what point can you apply for those programs in this COVID time?
So some of those grants have specific guidelines, sometimes a little bit more restrictive than other. So for example, some programs out there can allow your debt to income ratio go up to 49%, but these grants seem to have a little bit more of a conservative approach, and they may look at your income ratios a little bit different and a little bit more conservative. So there is, for example, some grants, which is CHI, they want you to be pre-approved before you find a house, okay? Sunny Mae is another, government that basically you can't apply to a Sunny Mae loan if you haven't found a house. So each grant, you have to make sure that you understand how the grant works, so then you can put that individual at the right time for that grant.
Now, stepping away from the money aspect, let's talk more about like the Long Island aspect. So when and where should a first-time home buyer look for their first home? And what are first-time home buyers looking for? Do people still want to live near a train station, or maybe not so much because people aren't commuting into the city anymore? So what are some of the trends that you're seeing in the field?
I mean, I'm seeing the trend coming from west to east as people coming out of the apartment living, or they want just more space. I think one of the most important parts of what people are looking for right now is outdoor space. If it's a small little yard, if it's something where they could just open the door and walk outside, very, very important, rather than living in a building where they have to get an elevator and go through a lobby. Especially since what we've gone through over the past few months, I understand that it's not easy. It's not easy living in an apartment. So I would say that that's one of the most important things. And I do think that down the line, you're seeing more people move further east because people aren't necessarily going to be going into the city, into their office 5 days a week anymore. They're finding out that, you can work from home 3 days a week and maybe go in two. So people are, I believe, taking the aspect that I'd rather have space and I'll deal with a lengthier commute down the line for 2 or 3 days that I have to go in. What do you think, Scott?
I'm saying the same thing, Matt. And I think, although COVID is a very unfortunate situation, we work in a very fortunate area because we both kind of work in the same area of that South Shore, Nassau County and above. And we're seeing the Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan people moving into Nassau County, South Shore, North Shore, Nassau County. And then we're seeing a lot of people who have put their houses on the market on the North Shore in Nassau County, and they're moving out to Suffolk County. So it's really nice to be where we are. And I count myself very fortunate to not only live where I live, but to work with the company that I work for, because we have a large presence on Long Island and Queens, and with the Sotheby's contingent, Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, and elsewhere. So right now, I couldn't be busier. It's very, very fortunate for me. And I'm really happy to find people their new homes out east, their new homes in Nassau County. And that's what makes me, the part of this job that's so much fun for me is people's next chapter of their lives and helping them with that. And it's been very interesting in the last couple months, since June, to say the least.
Max and Ashley, what were you looking for in a home? I know you mentioned you knew you wanted to be in North Bellmore, right? But what exactly were you looking for in your neighborhood?
We kind of started out with a broader area. I grew up in Wantagh and Max grew up in Oceanside, and both our parents are still there, so we knew we wanted to be near them. So we were stuck on the South Shore, but we were looking from Massapequa to Merrick, basically. I'm still commuting to work now, so being near a parkway was important, and just being near families. And then we kind of just looked at the communities more. We took walks through the neighborhood, which was a COVID-friendly activity at least we could do, and kind of just walked through each neighborhood and kind of figured out exactly where we wanted to be from there.
Yeah, and I think Matt hit it on the head. I mean, it's about space, and we were in a 1-bedroom apartment in Forest Hills, which was plenty nice and brand new and a decent size for a 1-bedroom apartment. But when you're stuck in it for 6 months with just 2 of us and a dog, it was, not the easiest working environment. So, we wanted space, we wanted a backyard, we wanted a pool, and luckily we were able to find all that.
I totally understand what you mean by Forest Hills because that's where I live as well.
We loved it. We loved it there. The space didn't work. And with, I work in Manhattan generally, but not going into the office. We didn't have to be there to make work.
Right, because our homes are not just homes anymore. There are offices, there are restaurants, there are our gyms, there are recreation facilities. We do everything and more in our homes now. So I could see people want the space. You want to be able to spread out.
And I think what you just said, Sky, is an important point, right? We need to have home offices these days. So you need an extra room on top of the bedrooms that you want so that you can make an office or make a gym or be able to make your home your everything, such as it is right now.
Mm-hmm. So now, question about the current sweet spot area. Are you seeing specific prices or specific neighborhoods where people are getting the best value during this time? Matt?
I'm seeing that people aren't as specific to the town that they want to be in because there's such low inventory. If somebody comes to me and says, I want to spend X amount of dollars, when you really need to sit down and talk, are you okay with this, this, and this? Instead of looking at one community, we're looking at 4 or 5 or 6 communities now where we never did that before. So when, a property comes on the market, we might run to this town where we normally would not have. So somebody that might be looking, I'm just going to say, in Westbury, let's just say, maybe they're looking in Westbury, now they're looking in East Meadow, they're looking in Hicksville, they're looking in Levittown, they're looking in Seaford and Wanta, where they never would have looked, let's say, Seaford and Wanta, because maybe that was a little too far east or south for them. But now they're open to it because within the budget, there's not a lot to choose from. And that's pretty much happening across the board in most price points.
Mm-hmm. Scott, are you seeing similar things?
You know, I'm seeing pretty much the same thing that Matt is seeing, obviously. It's funny, if one thing has happened with this COVID universe, so to speak, I think the agents are starting to work a little bit more together because it doesn't matter what area you used to specialize in. The old way of doing real estate was you had a town and you kind of stayed in that town or that vicinity. So one of the things that Matt brings to the table and I bring to the table is that we don't just specialize in one town. I mean, I kind of look at myself from all the way from the Queens border to Massapequa and all the way up to Garden City and type of a triangle type of situation. And when you're able to do that and know about these communities, it puts you in a really great position, especially now where people are coming to you and they usually say, listen, I have this much money. This is what I'm looking for and I want to look in this town. And you say, you know what? We have to kind of broaden our search. But when you have the connections like Matt and I have, and it's not the Matt and I show, and I don't mean to be like that, but for the most part, we can reach out or people reach out to us and say, listen, I have this, I need this. If you see this, can you help me with this? And I'm seeing that more in the last 3 months than I have in my whole 9 years in real estate. If something has come out of this as a good thing out of COVID, it seems like real estate agents are working more cohesively to try to solve the solutions for their buyers, because the buyers I feel for, and I said this already twice, and I had I just put my house on the market. I decided to do what everyone else is doing and saying, you know what? It's time to maximize on selling your house. Yeah. If you're a real estate agent out there and you decide to sell your house on your own, I'm going to advise you against it. I did it. It was very emotional draining because you do meet everyone. So I met in one day 27 different people who were in the same situation. They've been looking for houses since May, June, July, and they've lost tons of houses. They all told me their stories of woe. Their agents are tearing up. They're tearing up. They want homes. And here I am selling my own home and being a real estate agent and being like, oh my God, you know, how can I do this? What it did bring to me is, though, how it feels to, one, be a seller of a home, mm-hmm. Two, be cognizant of what everyone's going through, because it's really tough out there. And if anything, it reinforced what this whole webinar is about, and that's team, getting a trusted advisor, real estate advisor, communicating, and making sure that you are prepared to make good offers, fast offers, move forward, and sometimes even forego some of the wonderful things like mortgage contingencies or in other contingencies that we usually do, like the house that I just sold. They bought it without doing an inspection. They waived the inspection contingency.
Right.
Buyer's agent, it puts us in a tough position because it's not something that we want to advise. But if you're competing with 30 other, offers, sometimes you have to think outside the box.
Scott, underscore Scott's point there. Number one, if you see a house that you like on Zillow, MLS, etc., don't wait. Go see it that day. I can't tell you how many houses we saw that flew off the market above asking price that night, sight unseen, just because someone had a cash offer and was ready to go make a deal. And to Scott's point about the inspection contingency, if you have an acceptable offer and you're ready to do an inspection, get a commitment from the seller's agent or from the seller that if they do take another offer, they're going to reimburse you for that inspection. We were in that position. We did an inspection. We didn't get a commitment from them. We were new to the process. We had no idea that they could take another offer. They took another offer and for days and days and days stalled on committing to reimburse us for our inspection. And when you're going through the process of shelling out a lot of money to buy a house, the $600-700 inspection matters. And ultimately they did the right thing, but get that commitment beforehand.
I can't stress enough about when a house comes on the market, you have to be ready to jump.
Mm-hmm.
Like as a listing agent myself, when I put a house on the market these days, I put a house on the market last week in the afternoon. By 5-6 o'clock, there were 6 showings that evening. So like people aren't waiting till the weekend, like they're running to the houses. So when, you know, if let's say I'm working with a buyer, I will tell the buyer, look, there will be a time where maybe I have another appointment somewhere else, or maybe I'm away for the weekend or whatever the story is, but I have a team of agents that work with me on my team that will never miss a beat. So let's say I can't go show you this house tonight. There will be somebody there in my place that will be representing you to get you in that house. So we make sure we get this house for you. And that's super, super important. A lot of times, there's a lot of agents out there that work part-time. They don't see the house pop on the market at 9 a.m. and you know, I'm already showing it by noon, by 12 o'clock. So that's the type of fast pace we have right now that we need to continue with.
Yeah, and I'm going to say something that agents might not like to hear, but like, make your agent work for you. And like, if you see a house at 8 o'clock at night, text them and say, I want to see it first thing tomorrow morning, tonight, etc. And, you know, we were lucky. We had an agent who we'd text and we'd be in the house an hour later. And we'd run out from Queens to see the house. And so, like, remember that your whole team ultimately works for you. And don't be bashful about pushing them because they want to sell the house too.
But also to the point of rushing to see the house, we also had to rush. If we like the house, okay, we have to rush to make the offer because you want to get that offer in as soon. So like the whole thing was rush, and it wound up being good, but it was a big rush.
Yeah, you almost don't have time to think, which it's stressful. But like if you want a house after you see it at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you better be ready to make an offer at 8 o'clock or it's going in this market.
And it is stressful.
Absolutely.
And it's stressful for not only the buyers, it's stressful for the buyer's agent, and it's also stressful for the listing agents. We feel for you, some, I shouldn't say all, for you. And but you hit it 100% on the head. And there's nothing I hate more than being the listing agent of a hot house and it already has multiple offers and these wonderful couples are coming in. And you're like, and by the way, you have 15 minutes to see this house and we have multiple offers and highest and best by 5 o'clock. So let's make a $500,000 decision on your future in the next 5 minutes. It's very, very stressful to all. And again, that's why it's important. And that's why, Sky, thank you so much. And thank Stu Richner and Ellen Reynolds and everyone on the Herald team that put this together, because it's a really important topic that you need to be ready, willing, and able. You need to communicate with your professionals. And if that's what you hear from this panel tonight, it's about setting up a team, having the communication, and being ready. Because if you're not ready, you're going to miss the boat.
Now, because there's such little inventory on the market, things are flying off the shelves, houses are flying off the shelves. How do you go about choosing an agent to represent you? If you're saying their area is sort of expanding, right? If someone picks a neighborhood, they show you multiple neighborhoods. So how can someone go about finding and choosing a good agent for them?
Well, Matt or I are good. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, I would say the majority of the buyers that come to me that I represent come from past customers or clients. So, you know, talk to your friends. Let's see if they had a good experience with that agent and say, hey, you know, would you mind giving me their information, their number? Looking at reviews on different websites, on Zillow, on Realtor.com. Those are real people. Those people are, you know, have been customers and clients. So I would say that, you know, word of mouth is really probably the biggest way that I get most of my buyers.
And I agree, the same thing. And you can use different websites to kind of take a look. I would warn you to go on to some websites and just click, because you may not get the person who actually knows the area, knows the house, etc. But there is ways you can go into different websites and investigate or look for agents that are from different towns, and you'll see how many sales they have. You'll see their reviews, and you might feel comfortable working with somebody. But Matt's 100% correct. I mean, word of mouth. If somebody else, sold, a friend of yours sold a house, you ask them how they would treat it, and they'll tell you. Either they were really good or they really let me down, and you can decide who you want to work with.
Mhm.
The way I feel is, look, if I do right by you, you're going to be happy. You're going to tell your friends and family, and that's how I've built my business over the past 18 years.
Mhm.
I just wanted to add a couple of things. I think that one of the things that are important of this webinar is to educate. And we've done, I think, a tremendous job in educating everybody. But it's also preparing people for the future. So some of these buyers, and again, first-time home buyer is classified as somebody that hasn't owned a property in the last 3 years. So you could have owned something 3 years ago, and now you rented for 3 years, you went back home, whatever the circumstances, and now you're back again in the market. And markets change. I've been doing this for many, many years, and I've seen rates in the 18% and in the 2.625%. So I've seen the spread. I've seen a lot of people. I've had a lot of repeat. I'm very, very lucky that I've had a lot of repeat customers, because I've given my heart and soul into every deal. But it's important to educate people that it's okay. You may not be ready now, but this is what you need to do, to get yourself ready. You may need to fix your credit. You may need to, some of these programs are not credit score driven. So you have alternative credit. You pay your car insurance, you pay your phone bill. Those things don't show up on your credit report. So those are little things that you need to educate people, that it's not only about the credit score, it's about your history. You've been paying rent. That's another alternate credit. So it's important to educate people and not scare people that, yes, this is a very hot market, and homes are going very quickly. But markets change, and there is a lot of differences out there. A lot of people moving out east because they don't have to be next to the train station anymore, or they're moving upstate because they can work from home. So there's more affordable houses in those areas. And so there is never give up. I always say that, never give up, because there is programs out there. There is homes for you. And you may buy that little ugly duckling house in the neighborhood just because it needs a new window, because it maybe needs a new bathroom, a new kitchen, but there's programs out there to help you. So, there is a lot of programs out there, like grants for first-time home buyers. So it may not be the right time for you, but that time will come. So just wanted to throw in that little educational part.
Thank you, Veronica. And someone just asked if you can give a short checklist of what you have to do before you apply for a mortgage, maybe the top 3 or 5 things.
No such thing as a short checklist for that.
So the checklist changes every case. I tell you, there is no checklist that I can say that I can use for everybody, because each one is individually different. So for example, self-employed people, during COVID, self-employed has been a challenge. How's your employment? How do you have to pay your employees? Do you have the same amount of business? So the checklist may vary if you're self-employed, if you're salaried, if you're getting gift money. So it basically says your income. We have to check your income. Is your income changed? Will it change? If you have part-time income, how long has it been? Because if you just started a part-time job, we may not be able to use it. So income is one of the checklists. How is your credit? Do you have alternative credit? And does your credit needs to be fixed? Have you ever had anybody check your credit? Income, credit, assets, where assets are coming from. You know, will you be getting a gift? We need to paper trail that. What is paper trail? Well, we need to see where the money's coming. Did you deposit that money? Did that money clear? So income, credit, assets, those are the three things that are very important. And also your wish list, you know, basically the budget that you have is very important. You know, what's your comfort level? Because I can qualify you, but if your comfort level is different, we need to talk about that. I don't want to pay more than $2,000 a month. Okay, let's talk about that. What can that afford? What can you afford with that budget? So, so each one is individual, and I love doing individual pre-approvals because, you know, that's part of the educational part.
Sky, if I could just add to that, the most important thing I learned, and I wasn't good at it before, is keep records of everything. Because when Veronica talks about a paper trail, she means a paper trail. And if you move money between two accounts, you're not clearing unless they can figure out exactly where that money went, when it landed in the other account. And so, like, you know, you need 6 months of pay stubs or a year of tax returns. Like, make sure you have those records, because at the end of the day, time is of the essence on a lot of these things. So you need to be able to find them quick. And that is, once you're in contract too, and you're looking for the mortgage, if you're looking for a quick close, you've got to have those documents at the ready fast so that you can get your commitment.
And don't make
if you've given me a
purchases
pay
either.
stub, if you've given me a pay stub from July and you think you're done, no, you're not done. So I'm going to be asking, especially through COVID, I'm going to be asking for updated pay stubs, updated bank statements. So I'm always going to be calling you, where's my pay stub? Where's my bank statement? And if you're going to give me a bank statement, I need all the pages of the bank statement. So, you know, I think that sometimes I'm the mother of mortgage because I'm constantly harassing everybody, but that's the key to your success. If somebody is going to work with you and walk you every step of the way, that's so important.
How can a first-time home buyer determine how much money they can spend on their first house?
So that's a very big question, because first of all, we need to know what kind of debt do you have. So that's, you know, that's the number one question. What kind of debt do you have, especially with student loans? You know, that's a big question with student loans. With you know, are they in deferment? When are you going to start paying those? Are they furloughed? You know, so there's a lot of issues with student loans these days. So how much you can afford is, first of all, again, looking at your income. Is your income going to change? Who's going to be with you on the mortgage? Will you have somebody that is going to co-sign you to help you qualify for the mortgage? You know, sometimes parents help out, and a lot more than ever, parents are helping out not only with their income, but also providing gifts, you know. So it all depends who else can help you on the mortgage, and, you know, basically what kind of debt do you have? Are you going to be, is that debt going to be changing in the next few months? So it's not an easy question to answer. It's all basically case by case.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know we're nearing 8 o'clock, so I want to get through as many questions as we can, but there are a lot of questions. So if your question isn't answered, I apologize. We do have an email address if you want to send questions after this to me. But someone asked about foreclosures. Do you predict that we'll see many foreclosures on Long Island because of the hot market right now?
You know, maybe the issue with foreclosures is that the courts are not, you know, some of the courts are very backed up and there's not a lot of foreclosures being served. So I think that for the time being, we're not going to see that much, but I think, hopefully I'm wrong, but we're going to see a lot of foreclosures coming up.
Mm-hmm. Now, a question now for Matt and Scott. What happens if you remodeled your home without permits? And who is responsible for ensuring the seller has all the proper permits, C of Os, etc., for any work done on the home?
Well, that's like a twofold question, because if you hire a buyer's agent, the buyer's agent is responsible for checking all of that for their client, who is the buyer. The listing agent who's listing the house is responsible for finding that information out for the seller for the house. Now, that being said, it was a lot easier pre-COVID to be able to get this information from the towns, the villages, the cities. We've had a little bit of a challenge and we're a little bit of backlogged. The good news is that for the most part, you can get a form to email a village, a town, a municipality to try to figure out what's called a FOIL report, to find out if there's any open permits, to find out if there's any liens against the house. And it does take a lot longer. But the good news is a lot of people are cognizant of that. So for example, I just got an acceptable offer in a house in Rockville Center this week. And the agent, who is the listing agent, and myself, who's a buyer's agent, we both agreed to try to get this information. So if one of us is successful, we'll have it. Because a lot of times, if you don't get it now, it comes up in the 11th hour and then you're delayed. And most of the time, it's an open permit that should have been closed in 1972 because they didn't have the inspector come back to just make sure it was done correctly. You know, but I will tell you, it happens more than not. So I wouldn't, you know, get too crazy about it. It's always a way to rectify.
Mm-hmm. A question about Nassau versus Suffolk. What's the split of new housing being built in Nassau versus Suffolk? Are you seeing a trend in either county?
Well, I did a quick search because I knew this question was going to come up beforehand. In Nassau County, there's about 330 new construction homes that are currently on the market. And in Suffolk County, there's about 388. So there's a little bit more in Suffolk. Suffolk is definitely a larger area. But I would say Nassau's got a decent amount right now. Mostly spot builds, mostly, you know, builder buying a property, knocking it down and, you know, putting up a new construction home. So decent amount.
It doesn't sound like a lot. In the 300s, is that a lot?
For new construction, I don't think it's, Scott, what do you think? I mean, I don't know the numbers of
You
new
know,
construction. We always lack new construction. We're an island. There's no more land to build.
Yeah, I
Right.
think Nassau County as a whole, there's not too many places for new construction. So you have to find a distressed property or a property that a contractor or an investor can see a profit into being able to make a new construction. To Matt's point before, you're always probably going to see more in Suffolk. There's bigger pieces of land. There's undeveloped pieces of land. I mean, we see it in the 55 and over communities, which Nassau is lacking considerably, whereas Suffolk County is being able to build some of these newer multi-unit facilities, which is what people are looking for now who are downsizing. So you don't see as many in Nassau, but you do see them popping up.
Yes.
Now, what is your advice for someone who does not currently live on Long Island, who's looking to buy a home on Long Island within the next few months?
My advice would be that they need to come down here as much as possible, or at least for a long weekend, to get spend a weekend of just looking at homes, figuring out what area they really want to purchase a home in, so that when a home does come on the market specifically in that area, either A, I'm able to do a virtual tour for them, where I can go there and FaceTime them and they could see the house that way, or, have them come down specifically if it's a house that I believe is perfect for them. Mm-hmm. We learned a lot during COVID.
I think the best thing to do if you're outside the area, Long Island has so many great things to do, especially this time of year. There, you can go everywhere from Nassau County to Suffolk County, where you have pumpkin picking and apple picking and hay rides and this and that, and most of them are COVID friendly. So what I would do is probably, because what I'm seeing is I'm a lot busier Monday through Friday, which used to not be how our real estate work week went. Saturdays and Sundays, it seems to be that people want to spend time with their family. Ever since COVID hit, weekends are really important. Also, People are home during the week. They have time to come out on their lunch break, make time and see homes during the week, which I love. But if people are coming from outside the area, use the weekend, use Long Island, go on websites, find out what's happening, drive through towns, drive through villages, stop for lunch, stop for dinner, see what we have to offer, and then narrow down the areas that you really want to live in, and then call Matt or call me, and we can help you find a home.
And just to reiterate what I was saying before, COVID also taught us a lot of doing things virtually, a lot of doing virtual open houses and whatnot. We had a zigzag to figure out how to do things when we couldn't show houses and we had sellers that needed to sell and buyers that wanted to buy. We had to do things differently. So it really opened up the door to people are okay with looking at a house virtually right now. I've had multiple closings in the past few weeks where the first time the buyers walked in the house was the day they're doing the walkthrough, the day they're closing, because they didn't even see it because we couldn't get into the house. Sight unseen, they bought it, just doing the FaceTime, video. So these are just alternate options for people that aren't in the area.
Now, a final question. This one's for Veronica. What percentage of your take-home pay is standard to put towards a mortgage per month if you have no debt?
So it also depends what you're buying. So if you're buying a co-op, obviously your closing costs are going to be minimum. If you're buying a home that has very high real estate taxes, that's going to influence the amount of mortgage payment. So, and also the amount of down payment that you're going to be putting. So 3% down payment is going to have a larger mortgage payment because you're going to have mortgage insurance. Somebody that is putting 20% down won't have that mortgage insurance. So it's a tricky question to ask, and it also depends on what your credit scores are, because if you have a 720 credit scores, your mortgage insurance is going to be much less than if you have a 640 credit scores. It's amazing how the mortgage insurance can jump up big time because your credit scores are lower. So it all depends. So some programs allow for 43, 45% of your gross income. Some programs allow to 49% of your gross income. So again, depending if you're taking grants, that's going to affect your loan to value and your DTI, your debt to income ratio.
Well, that's all the time we have together now. And I thank you so much to our panelists for being with us, and to everyone who's watching, thank you so much. And I'm going to put up my slide here that shows the email address to send to if you have any other questions or suggestions for future panel discussions. Thank you on behalf of Herald Community Newspapers and Richner Live. Thank you for joining us on Herald Inside LI, this weekly show that we put together for you, concentrated on Long Island. And thank you so much to our sponsors, again, for participating in this conversation and for supporting this venture. And thank you again to our panelists. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye,
Good night, guys.
everyone.
Thank you.